59 seconds. That is all it took. 59 seconds for Marjorie Taylor Greene to sit in complete silence after Senator Elizabeth Warren placed a 5-year net worth timeline on the table, looked her directly in the eye, and asked one question that 4 years of financial disclosures, 450 stock trades, and a $21 million wealth increase had already answered. How did you make $21 million on a $174,000 salary while voting against every reform that would have required you to stop? Not a complicated question, not a legal theory, just a number, a salary, a voting record, and the arithmetic that connects them. Watch what happens when Warren reads that net worth timeline out loud, year by year, number by number. Watch Greene's face. Watch her lead attorney write something down very fast, and then stop. And watch 59 seconds of complete stillness from a woman who told the American public she was in Congress to fight for them, not to get rich off them. You need to see this until the very end, because what Warren uncovered in that hearing room is not about ideology, it is not about party, it is about a number, a very specific, very public, very documented number, $21 million in 4 years on a government salary, and a voting record that made sure nobody could stop it. If you are new to this channel, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. This hearing just became the most important testimony of the year, and you need to see every second of what happened next. Let me set the scene for you. Senate Banking Committee, Room 538. Tuesday morning, 9:44 a.m. Eastern Time. The room was already at a different temperature before either woman arrived. Everyone who covers Congress understood what this session represented. Elizabeth Warren had spent 4 years trying to pass a bill that would ban members of Congress from trading individual stocks. 4 years of introducing legislation, building bipartisan coalitions, holding hearings, making the argument over and over again that public servants should not be allowed to use their access to non-public information to profit personally from the markets they are responsible for regulating. 4 years. And every single time, the bill had died. Not because it was unpopular. Polls showed 67% of Americans across party lines supported a congressional stock trading ban. It died because the people who would have had to follow the rules were the same people voting on whether to pass them. And one of the most active stock traders in the House of Representatives had voted against reform every single time it came up. Marjorie Taylor Greene, 450 trades, 4 years, $21 million. Warren arrived first. She sat down and she opened a folder that was thicker than any folder that had appeared in this hearing series so far. Not 4 documents, not 6, a 5-year financial record, annual net worth figures, trade-by-trade disclosure summaries, a legislative voting history on every stock trading reform bill introduced in the 117th and 118th Congress. She had been building this folder for a long time. She set it on the table, and she looked at the door. Greene arrived with 3 attorneys and 2 aides. That walk, that posture, the practiced confidence of someone who has been in hostile rooms before and always found a way out. She sat at the witness table and she looked across at Warren with the particular steadiness of someone who has already decided they are not going to give anything away in this room. She checked her phone. She looked almost relaxed. She thought she knew the shape of this conversation. Rich politician questions, rich politician about money. She had her answers ready. Fiduciary agreement, financial advisor. All trades publicly disclosed. She had said those 3 things so many times they had become reflexes. She had no idea what was in Warren's folder. The first 20 minutes were standard procedure. Committee counsel handled background questions, trading disclosure requirements, Stock Act compliance timelines. The procedural foundation that gives a hearing its structure before the real questions begin. Greene answered each one with the practiced efficiency of someone who has rehearsed this exact territory dozens of times. Short, clean, no openings. She looked comfortable. She thought the worst was already behind her. Then Elizabeth Warren took the microphone. Congresswoman Greene. The room shifted in the particular way it shifts when Elizabeth Warren takes a microphone in a hearing about money. She has spent 30 years studying financial systems, financial crimes, and the way powerful people use legal structures to do things the law was designed to prevent. She does not perform outrage. She does not grandstand. She builds a case the way an engineer builds a bridge, one load-bearing piece at a time, until the weight of it is undeniable. Greene looked up. She was ready. She thought, I want to start with a number. Warren reached into the folder. She pulled out a single printed timeline, one page, dates on the left, figures on the right. She set it flat on the table facing the cameras. She did not rush. She looked at it for a moment. Then she looked at Greene. January 2021. You enter Congress. Your financial disclosure shows a stock portfolio valued at approximately $630,000. She looked at the timeline. End of year 2021. Your portfolio is valued at approximately $780,000. 2022, $1.1 million. 2023, $1.8 million. 2024, $2.4 million. She looked up. November 2025. You announce your resignation. Your portfolio is estimated at between $2.6 million and $4 million. She set the timeline down. 476% increase in 4 years. She looked at Greene. On a salary of $174,000 per year. She paused. That is not investing. That is a second career. Greene's lead attorney shifted in his seat. A small, controlled motion. He did not speak yet. He was listening, calculating. Greene's voice was flat and controlled. Senator Warren, my financial advisor, manages my portfolio under a signed fiduciary agreement. All trades have been publicly disclosed within the legally required time frame. My investment returns reflect the strong performance of the markets during this period and the skill of my financial advisor. There is nothing improper about strong investment returns. Warren looked at her for a moment. She wrote one word on her legal pad. Then she looked up. She picked up the timeline again. She flipped it over. On the back, a different set of numbers. She read from it without holding it up. In 2024, the S&P 500 returned 24.9%. She looked at Greene. Your portfolio returned 30.2%. She set it back down. In 2025, the average congressional portfolio returned approximately 18%. She looked at Greene. Your win rate on individual trades was 74.5%. She paused. Hedge funds average between 50 and 60% win rates. Your financial advisor was outperforming hedge funds. She looked at Greene directly. What is your financial advisor's name? A very small thing happened in Greene's expression. Not visible to the cameras, but Warren noticed it. The almost imperceptible shift of someone who has just been asked a question they expected, but not at this specific moment in this specific sequence. Congresswoman. My financial advisor's identity is a personal matter that I don't believe is relevant to this. I am going to stop you there. Warren held up one hand. Patient. Unhurried. The stop gesture of someone who has heard this answer before and knows exactly what to do with it. She reached into the folder. She pulled out a second document. She held it up briefly, then placed it flat on the table. This is a summary of the bipartisan ban on Congressional Stock Ownership Act that I introduced in the 117th Congress, reintroduced in the 118th Congress, and am currently working to reintroduce again. She found the relevant section. She read from it. Quote, Members of Congress and their spouses would be required to divest from individual stocks, bonds, commodities, and other securities within 180 days of enactment. Members may hold diversified mutual funds, exchange-traded funds, or assets held in a qualified blind trust. End quote. She set the document down. She looked at Greene. If this bill had passed in 2021, you would have been required to place your portfolio in a blind trust or divest your individual holdings within 180 days. She paused. You would not have been able to personally benefit from any information, public or non-public, that came through your congressional office. She picked up a third document. She held it up. A voting record. She set it flat on the table. Every vote you cast on congressional stock trading reform legislation from 2021 through 2025. She read, 2021. Did not co-sponsor the original Stock Act Enhancement Bill. 2022. Voted against a motion to bring the bipartisan ban on Congressional Stock Ownership Act to the floor. 2023. Did not vote on the companion House bill. 2024. Voted against a procedural motion that would have advanced stock trading reform legislation. She set the voting record down next to the net worth timeline. She looked at Greene. Every year you were in Congress, every time reform came up, you either voted against it or declined to support it. She paused. While your portfolio was growing 476%, the room was very still now. Not the restless stillness of people waiting for the next procedural item, the heavy, concentrated stillness of people who have just watched two documents placed side by side and understood exactly what they say together. Journalists were not typing. Committee staff had gone quiet. Even Greene's second attorney, who had been writing notes steadily for the past 30 minutes, had set her pen down. If you have made it this far and this matters to you, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. What Warren pulls out next is the document that no major network covered when this hearing aired, the piece of this that makes everything else make sense. Stay with this until the end. Greene's lead attorney was on his feet. Senator Warren, my client's voting record on legislative matters is separate from her personal financial activity. Members of Congress vote on legislation based on their policy beliefs and their obligations to their constituents. The suggestion that there is a connection between her votes and her personal enrichment is, I will address that in a moment. Warren's voice remained at the same precise, unhurried level it had maintained from the beginning. She looked at the attorney. But first I want to show your client one more document. She reached into the folder. She pulled out a fourth document. 2 pages. She held it up long enough for every camera in the room to capture it. Then she set it flat on the table. This is a report from the Government Accountability Office on congressional stock trading patterns and legislative outcomes, published in March 2024. She opened it to a specific page. She read, quote, Analysis of congressional trading activity between 2020 and 2023 reveals a statistically significant correlation between members' voting records on financial regulation legislation and their personal trading performance. Members who consistently voted against financial regulation reform demonstrated trading returns that were on average 8.3 percentage points higher than members who supported reform measures. End quote. She set the document down. She looked at Greene. 8.3 percentage points. She picked up the net worth timeline. Your portfolio outperformed the S&P 500 by 5.3 percentage points in 2024. She set it down. She looked at Greene directly. The GAO report does not name individual members. It describes a pattern. She tapped the voting record. Your voting record fits that pattern precisely. Now I need to stop for a second. If you believe that members of Congress should not be able to vote against the rules that would have prevented them from getting rich, hype this video right now. The hype button is right next to like. You can hype 3 times a day for free. We have 7 days to get this into the top 100 most hyped videos on YouTube. Every single hype counts. Do it now. Then keep watching, because what happens next is the sentence that will appear in every financial ethics analysis filed in connection with this hearing. Greene's second attorney was whispering urgently. Greene was listening. Her jaw moved slightly. Then she said something that was not the prepared answer, not the fiduciary agreement response, not the publicly disclosed trades response. Something that came out before the preparation could stop it. Senator Warren, I have been one of the most transparent members of Congress about my financial activity. Everything is disclosed. Everything is public. You can see every single trade I made. I have nothing to hide. Warren looked at her for a long moment. She wrote something on her legal pad. She looked at it. Then she looked up. She said very quietly, You just said you have nothing to hide. She picked up all 4 documents together. The net worth timeline, the bipartisan ban legislation summary, the voting record, the GAO report. She held them as a set. You entered Congress with $630,000 in stocks. You are leaving with between $2.6 and $4 million. That is 476% growth in 4 years. She set them back down side by side. You voted against or declined to support every reform that would have required you to put that portfolio in a blind trust. She tapped the GAO report. A government report documents a pattern linking votes against financial reform to higher personal trading returns. She looked at Greene. If you have nothing to hide, answer me this. She leaned slightly toward the microphone. If the bipartisan ban on Congressional Stock Ownership Act had passed in January 2021, the week you took office, and you had been required to place your holdings in a blind trust, would your portfolio have performed the same way it did over the next 4 years? 59 seconds. A committee staffer in the back of the room counted it. A journalist in the second row confirmed the number with 2 colleagues afterward. 59 seconds where Marjorie Taylor Greene, the woman who had said moments earlier that she had nothing to hide, said absolutely nothing. Her hands were flat on the table. The lead attorney had his pen in his hand but was not writing. The second attorney had stopped whispering. The room held its breath. Drop a comment right now. Tell me what 59 seconds of silence from the most active stock trader in the House of Representatives means in response to that question, because Warren already knows, and she is about to say it. When Greene finally spoke, her voice was the quietest it had been at any point in the morning. Senator, I cannot speculate about hypothetical investment outcomes. My financial advisor makes independent decisions. I do not have advanced knowledge of my portfolio's trades. I cannot say how any investment would have performed under different management structures. Warren looked at her. She did not say anything for a moment. She let the answer sit in the room and let the room hear every careful word of it. Then she picked up the net worth timeline one more time. She held it up, not toward Greene, toward the cameras. 2021, $630,000. 2022, $1.1 million. 2023, $1.8 million. 2024, $2.4 million. 2025, $3 to $4 million. She set it down. She looked at Greene. You entered this building as a public servant. She picked up the voting record. You voted against the rules that would have required you to serve the public without also serving yourself." She set it down. She looked at the committee, and then she looked back at Greene one final time. She said in a voice that was very quiet and very precise, "The American people paid you $174,000 a year to represent them." She pointed at the net worth timeline. "During those same 4 years, your portfolio generated returns that no ordinary American investor could replicate." She paused. "That is not a coincidence. That is a system, and you voted to protect it every single time someone tried to shut it down." She gathered her 4 documents back into the folder. She closed it. "These will be entered into the Senate record today: the net worth timeline, the legislation summary, the voting record, the GAO report, all 4, permanently." She looked at Greene one final time. "You said you have nothing to hide." She held up the closed folder. 4 documents, 5 years, 476%, and 59 seconds of silence when I asked whether you could have done the same thing under the rules you voted to prevent. She set the folder down. "If you had nothing to hide, that question would have had an answer." She stepped back from the microphone. "I yield back, Mr. Chairman." The hearing continued for another 40 minutes. Other senators asked other questions: trade policy, banking regulations, standard committee business. None of it had the weight of what had just happened in those 25 minutes. Because Elizabeth Warren had built a case the way she always builds cases, not with accusations, with arithmetic. A number going in, a number going out, the votes that sat between them, and 59 seconds of silence from the person who made the journey from one number to the other while making sure nobody could stop her. Within the hour, the clips were everywhere. Warren reading the net worth timeline year by year. Warren holding up all 4 documents together. Greene sitting with her hands flat on the table and the question hanging unanswered in the room. Financial ethics experts were already discussing whether the GAO report's pattern analysis, now in the Senate record, created grounds for a formal investigation into the relationship between anti-reform votes and trading performance. Former SEC officials were noting publicly that the sequence Warren had described, vote against oversight, execute 450 trades under a fiduciary agreement, outperform hedge fund win rates, was precisely the pattern the original Stock Act was designed to prevent but had proven insufficient to address. This is not a partisan argument. This is a net worth timeline, a legislative record, a voting history, and a government report. All 4 in the public record, all 4 telling the same story in different languages. You came in with $630,000. You left with $4 million. You voted against every rule that would have required you to do it differently. And when someone put those 4 facts in the same room at the same time and asked whether the connection was a coincidence, you gave them 59 seconds of silence and then told them you could not speculate about hypothetical investment outcomes. Share this video everywhere. The Senate record now contains all 4 documents. The GAO report is publicly available. The net worth figures come from public FEC disclosures. The voting record is public. The only thing that was not in a single room until today was all 4 of them together with the question that connects them. That question is now in the record, permanently, and 59 seconds of silence is the answer the record will carry. Subscribe now. Hit the bell. And if you missed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez connecting Greene's McCarthy loyalty votes to a $340,000 fundraising surge in 48 hours, or Ted Lieu placing her Palantir purchase next to the classified Homeland Security briefing that preceded it, watch those videos on screen right now. 6 hearings, 6 sets of documents, 6 silences. The same story from 6 different directions. A public servant who used public office as a private financial engine and voted to make sure nobody could turn it off. The documents do not forget. The arithmetic does not forget. And 59 seconds of silence is its own kind of answer. 59 seconds, 4 documents, 5 years, 476%. And the woman who said she had nothing to hide, sitting in silence because the one question she could not answer was the simplest one in the room.